Hockey's finally back. Couldn't think of a better way to come back from the break, huh? Wait a second. Wait. The black jersey only comes out when something bad happens. What bad happened? Yes, we are mourning the loss. The league and every fan in it is mourning the loss of this. It's mourning the loss of this win streak. I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, nothing made me happier than seeing that graphic pop up. 16 wins! One away from the record, and then they get creamed. Whoa, hey now, don't get hasty. It was only 3-1. Granted, I mean, it's still an L. Well, I'm just as shocked as anybody else is, and while this is a very bright moment for the Golden Knights, this is a very dark moment for the NHL, so let's take this off and put on the dark jersey, the black jersey of sadness, because we are the only fan base, aside from everybody else who hates the Oilers, that aren't mourning what was and what could have been NHL history last night, as the Vegas Golden Knights come out of the All-Star break firing and defeat the Edmonton Oilers by a final score of 3-1. The storylines for this game need no introduction. The Edmonton Oilers have not lost in the calendar year of 2024. And the Golden Knights kind of skidded into the All-Star break, going, 2-1-1 on a 4-game road trip going into the All-Star break. The Edmonton Oilers are playing with a completely healthy roster and the two best players on the planet in the forms of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And the Vegas Golden Knights are without their top forward in Jack Eichel, one of their top defensemen in Shea Theodore, and one of their top depth pieces in Will Carrier. And so players like Brendan Brisson and Jonas Rondbjerg draw into the lineup against a team that hasn't lost this year. What could possibly go wrong? And of course, the important thing, which would become very important as the game would go on, the goaltending battle. Adin Hill, with his league-leading, just astronomically high save percentage. He's like 930 something. It's ridiculous. I know he got hurt and his stats are a little wonky because of that, but it is Adin Hill versus a revitalized and playing very well Stuart Skinner, who's given up 5 goals total in his last 5 road games. So, safe to say, between these two high-octane offenses, we might get a defensive showdown. The game started off mundane enough, and it looked like the Golden Knights actually came out with a lot of pep in their step and were able to draw an early penalty, which would be a good thing if the Golden Knights had what I would call a competent power play most of the time. I've been ragging on their power play for months and months and months, and it looked a lot better, at least for the first unit of this power play. Things were actually going fairly well. The Golden Knights had sustained offensive zone time and were able to get to the second unit fairly quickly. And with time winding down, it looked like the Golden Knights were going to get through the power play, establish some offensive zone time. That was until the puck went very slowly across the blue line, and I believe it was Bouchard, gave it a nice little bunk out into the neutral zone, and you'll never guess who was sitting in the neutral zone waiting to go in on a 2-on-0.
Ooh, I know.
Yes, that's right. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, because there couldn't be two worse players in the world to turn the puck over to in that part of the ice. You could put any goalie, you could put any 2 goalies in their prime, and if they get confronted with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl coming down on them on a 2-on-0, they're probably just going to freak out. And so I don't really blame Adin Hill when he saw this play coming and went a little bit, oh, come on, guys. And what wound up being essentially a foregone conclusion, McDavid to Draisaitl, Draisaitl to McDavid, through the legs of Adin Hill, and the high-flying Oilers get off to a 1-0 lead on what wound up being a shorthanded goal. Ouch. But I'll admit, there's a lot of hockey to go. There's so much hockey to go. There's like 50-plus minutes of hockey to go. And in response to giving up the first goal, the Golden Knights actually turned out and put up a pretty good performance throughout the remainder of the first period, especially the middle section when the Oilers were pressing very hard. Now, I'd be lying if I said that the Golden Knights were the better team for large chunks of this first period, because they weren't. They weren't the better team for large chunks of this game, but when they did things well, it worked out pretty well. And as time wound down into the period, things would start to go a little bit better for the Golden Knights when it comes to how they're able to maintain some offensive zone time. And ultimately, that box-and-one defensive structure, which gave Edmonton so much trouble during the start of the regular season and ultimately led to their coach, Jay Woodcroft, getting fired, would come back to bite them. As Pietrangelo would get the puck high in the zone, and for some reason, nobody would clear out the middle of the box, and, Nick Waugh just happens to be standing there, right in front of Stuart Skinner. Pietrangelo puts the puck on net, kind of rattles around a little bit. Waugh takes a hack on it, saved by Skinner. But because there's literally nobody in the zip code of Nick Waugh at the time he's there, he gets a second bite at the apple, and a player like that, Nick Waugh, is playing incredibly well right now. So don't give a guy like that 2 opportunities. Waugh makes him pay, and it is 1-1. Fortress goes crazy. ESPN sounds very disappointed that the Golden Knights have found a way to get back in this game. And ultimately, with that flurry of activity, that's how the period would end, with the game knotted up at 1 apiece. So Nick, happy belated birthday. How do you feel about that goal? I had Chipotle yesterday, and it gave me superpowers, and I score goals now. That whole interaction isn't entirely fictitious. Now, he didn't say that in his first intermission interview, but he did say that on Nighttime at Noon when he was asked what he was doing for his birthday. Chipotle gives him superpowers, apparently. But with that fun, whatever, second period begins. And the second period is where this game turned from a regular run-of-the-mill game on a Tuesday in February to a game that would make more sense in April or May during the Stanley Cup playoffs. While there were no goals in the second period, and while the Golden Knights played decently, even though they did, I believe, take a penalty in this period and killed it off very well, mind you, the fact of the matter is the temperature went up quite dramatically, and one of the ways that really encapsulates it, the Golden Knights had a lot of good opportunities, but the refs were letting them play, man, and this is going to become a theme throughout the rest of this recap, throughout the rest of this game, is that the refs they swallowed the whistles, especially after the Golden Knights got a little bit of lucky penalties, but ultimately still, there were some soft calls exchanged either way. I think the slash on Evander Kane is one of the softest penalties that was called the whole game. When the refs let them play, the players are going to start, enforcing the law themselves. And I know Pietrangelo got into a bit of a scuffle as the horn sounded to end the second period, but all I remember about the second period is that ESPN flashed the graphics 16 wins in a row across the bottom about 37 times. And we were getting out offensive zone possessed 11 minutes to 7. So it's what's crazy, and this is a testament to how well Adin Hill was playing to this point, and I haven't even really gotten to talk about him. This is his third game back since coming back from injury, and it was split by the All-Star break. He has not missed a beat. He got beat by McDavid and Draisaitl on that 2-1-0, but just has stood on his head to this point through 2 periods. And he is the difference in why the game is 1-1 at this point, and not the Oilers running off into the woods like they have been against every other inferior opponent they've played to this point on this 16-game win streak. The fact of the matter is, Hill's got their number right now, and that would only get more and more obvious as we get into the third period. Now, I just want to preface this next play by saying I'm a diehard Golden Knights fan, and I will always and forever take the good things that come to us with the joy that any fan should. But they missed a penalty on this play, as I don't remember who tackled who, but a guy in a gold jersey tackled somebody in a white and orange jersey in the neutral zone, and something happened that allowed that puck to get into the offensive zone. But Jonathan Marchessault finds himself behind the net with the puck and sees, I believe it's Chandler Stevenson, sitting out at the right circle with his stick down in a good shooting position. He feeds him out there, and Stevenson just absolutely fires a laser beam into the top left corner of the goal, and it's just up and over the blocker, up over the shoulder, and that's where the game turned. That is where the game turned for the Golden Knights' favor. The Oilers got really frustrated that there was no call, barking at the officials, but there's nothing you can do because they're letting you play. And the fact of the matter is, it was a bad line change by the Oilers that led to Stevenson being that open. And for a player who's had his fair share of troubles to score this year, this is a humongous goal for Stevenson, which is great to see, especially because VGK are now up 2-1, and the 15,000 Golden Knights fans get to hold one over the 3,700 Oilers fans that made the trek down from Alberta to have their hopes and dreams crushed. Now, know how I said in the second period is when the game really started to turn into a playoff game? I may have been slightly exaggerating, because that moment was the last TV timeout of regulation, about 7.5 minutes to go. That is where the game turned into a playoff game. Oilers absolutely dominated puck possession for the last 7-ish minutes of the game, and Adin Hill just had to be Stanley Cup final levels of good against this never-ending onslaught, wave after wave of McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nurse, Nugent-Hopkins, all these great players that are just, they're really good. The Oilers are really, really good. And the fact of the matter is, with 2 minutes and 15 seconds, they pulled Stuart Skinner. And I was fairly certain that they weren't going to pull him until a minute 30. And in a roundabout way, I wound up being right. As even though William Karlsson would have a chance to ice the game with about a minute and a half to go, really good defensive play by whoever backchecked, I can't remember off the top of my head, was able to break up the shot on goal and ultimately increase the collective heart rate of the VGK faithful around the world by at least another 20 beats a minute. But the Golden Knights are playing very good bend but don't break. They've been forcing the Oilers to the outside. The Oilers have been trying to cut behind the net on their offensive zone entries. Defenders are saying nuh-uh. They've tried to move the puck to the middle for backdoor feeds. The defensemen are saying nuh-uh. So there's really nothing that they can do, and that's really how it felt during the 6-on-5 period. As it worked out, the Golden Knights were able to block a shot with good puck recovery, and I believe this empty net goal touched every single Golden Knights stick except for one, as the pass went up to the center of the ice, to Stevenson, over to Karlsson, who walked in and said, you know what, I'm not going to have this blocked again. And then I hit him with the little whoop around the defender who's back checking and deposited it into the yawning cage to ice the game. Now, this was a normal empty net goal, and this did, in fact, ice the game. But there's something that I cannot get out of my head that will live rent-free. McDavid had a chance to stop this from happening, and he gave up on the play. He got beat at the offensive blue line for the Oilers, stopped skating around the red line, Karlsson toe-dragged around the defender, and McDavid just stood there. If he had been skating hard, he'd have been there to break up the deke. It would have never happened, and they would have had a chance to go down and score and tie up the game, force overtime. But he stopped, he coasted, and you can't stop and coast against a team that, honestly, it looked like at this point in the game wanted it more than the Oilers. This was a matter of pride, and let's be honest here, this is a play-up matchup in the makings. This is a preview for something we're going to see in April and May. And this could be to decide who goes to the Western Conference Final, just like it was last year. But what matters is the time ticks down, Golden Knights hold on to win and end the Oilers streak at 16, one shy, so you can breathe easy. 92-93 Penguins. The 92-93 Penguins record is so much more impressive than what the Oilers have put together. Now, you know, the record it's safe. The streak is over. But there's a little piece of data that I absolutely love about this streak that really kind of encapsulates just how weird the NHL is. With those 16 wins in a row, it's fair to say that you're bound to play some good teams eventually along the way. And of course, the Oilers did play a couple of decent teams on this win streak. But of the 16 wins they had, 4 of those wins were against the number 30, 31, or 32 team in the NHL. So third to last, second to last, and last at the time of the game. That's a lot of games against the Blackhawks and the Sharks. So that's a quarter of those wins right there. Only one of their wins on that win streak was against a team that was in the top 10 overall in the NHL when they beat them. It was the third win of this win streak. So it was before anybody was thinking, oh, let's go set the record. And it's the first time they had played a team situated in the top 15 in like 6 games. It was kind of insane. And what makes this even more poignant is the average overall placement of the opponents that the Oilers were playing on this win streak. 22nd. That's a strength of schedule. They took advantage of an easy patch of their schedule, and more credit to them for winning 16 in a row. But that's kind of what's expected when you play the average 22nd best team in the NHL on a night-to-night basis for a month and a half straight. And what really, really cracked me up, I just saw this tweet when I was getting ready to make this video. When the Oilers started this win streak, they had a few games in hand on the Vancouver Canucks and were 12 points behind. They've won 16 games in a row, and they're now 14 points back of the Canucks. Hockey's a stupid sport, I swear. But at the end of the day, you got to play the outcomes, and with the first star of the game being Aiden Hill, and I completely agree, the Golden Knights held on and won 3-1. Hopefully that's the start of our own win streak. Goodness knows we could use the points trying to secure a playoff spot down the stretch and make some good decisions going into the trade deadline. Winning makes the job of the GM so much easier. Did last year, and it worked out really, really, really well. Golden Knights were the best team after the All-Star break last year, and fingers crossed that this year is a very similar outcome. So that being said, hockey's back. I didn't know what to do with my time while there were 2 weeks off. I actually did schoolwork, which was weird. Never again. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like it, share it if you enjoyed it, send it to an Oilers fan if you really want to rub salt in the wound, tell all your friends, subscribe if you really liked it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.